Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Inside Groove right here on Northwest Access TV and Facebook Live. I'm your host, Nick Mumley, and alongside me, Dustin Tanner. No cup race this week, but definitely a lot to talk about as we saw some racing at Iowa Speedway in the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, and no shortage of storylines coming out of this weekend for sure. So we have an exciting show for you today, but before we get into it, we'd like to thank our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. Handy GMC Buick in St. Albans, Vermont. They've been locally owned for 3 generations, the #1 GM dealership in the North Country. Visit them online at handygmc.com or at their St. Albans location. And we're also sponsored by Burge Beef. They offer high-quality grass-fed beef products at affordable prices. Visit them on Facebook or call 802-782-2281 for more information. The Inside Groove is also on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook right now through our Facebook page, thanks for tuning in. And we have a website as well. Be sure to visit us there for full show podcasts and highlights, and an occasional blog post every once in a while as well on the news and notes surrounding the world of motorsports. So, Dustin, let's jump right into it here.
All right, great job with the sponsor plug there. So the sponsor plug could be a little more efficient. I would write the read down, maybe not do it in one massive dumping of sponsors, but just some advice
anyway. Thanks for the advice.
And also, when am I going to get my steak? Where's my cut?
You want a steak now?
I either want a steak or a tire from a car. Those are our sponsors.
A race-used tire.
No, not a race-used tire. Just like
just get a tire from
195 tire or whatever would fit my Volkswagen. Just give me a tire.
You want a tire from Handy GMC that'll fit on your Volkswagen.
Hey,
I don't think they do that.
I said make it happen. I didn't ask you how.
Well, and I think Caden Burge over at Burge Beef might owe you a steak because we watched the MVU Rice game that you commentated just about weekly on YouTube. So maybe he does owe you a steak.
No, that's your sponsorship deal. I don't care who does what.
Anyway,
now let's talk about what we're here to talk about.
Let's get right into it here. What a weekend at Iowa Speedway. A lot of rain came in on Saturday night, pretty much washed out. It made it look like the weekend was going to be just a failure. But it made a pretty interesting doubleheader on Sunday with the trucks racing in the afternoon and the Xfinity Series racing in the evening. And 2 really good races, but the Truck Series race brought the most attention of the weekend for multiple reasons. The first one was quite an incident between Austin Hill and Johnny Sauter. So this goes back a little bit. It came.
Beef. We're talking about
some beef.
Grass-fed beef. Well, let's talk about some beef right here between Austin Hill, 2 beefy dudes actually.
So Johnny Sauter and Austin Hill going at it a little bit. They make a little bit of contact, and Austin Hill not a fan of it. Sauter kind of moved him out of the groove, ran him up high on the track a little bit. So Austin Hill, instead of being a normal person and just going with it because there was 75 laps to go in the race.
Being a normal person, you mean to tell me when Dale Earnhardt dumped Terry Labonte that Dale Earnhardt wasn't being a normal person?
Listen,
come on, that was the standard Earnhardt bump and move him out of the way.
We'll get to it though, because Johnny Sauter, just moved Austin Hill out of the way a little bit. Hill came back and just flat out dumped Johnny Sauter going into turn 3. Johnny Sauter then under caution came out and dumped Austin Hill and caused a bunch of damage to his truck. This has raised a little bit of an outrage. It's now official that Sauters is suspended for
a week. Does not lose his playoff eligibility.
But he'll still be eligible to play or to race in the playoffs, which is is the key. And I think it's fair. I think that's a fair suspension. But man, I just don't think. I think Austin Hill is almost the bad guy here because his actions to begin the whole thing weren't warranted.
Well, I think so. Let's take a look at let's go back to the boys have at it age of NASCAR, right? So we're
not in anymore.
First off, we're not in it anymore, but both you and I agree with the idea of the boys have at it, right? So my issue with this is not anything that happened under green. When it is green flag racing, if there is a dude in your way, you get him out of the way. It's short track. You bump, you bang, you are there to win the race. My issue with it is that when you are under yellow, you do not go and wreck somebody under yellow, because at that point, there could be safety crews. At that point, there are a bunch of other competitors that are slowed down. Chasing somebody down to dump them under yellow is not kosher, in my opinion. You do it under the green flag conditions. And if it's the end of the race, you go to his pit stall and you do what Clint Boyer did, and you just beat, you punch it. You go after them. You either go after them off the track, like men or women, and be like, hey, let's square up. Or you dump them during the race. You do not dump them during a caution flag.
Here's why you're wrong.
Here we go.
So the first
here's why Nick hates safety.
It has nothing to do with safety. There was at any point, there was no concern for anyone's safety at this point.
Absolutely does.
Happened in the middle of the turn in the high lane. If there's a safety truck there, obviously nobody's going to get wrecked. There wasn't even time. This happened so quickly under yellow. They hadn't even gotten to the replay yet of Johnny Sauter getting turned around, and Johnny Sauter had already dumped the guy. It was literally 15 seconds after he
dude when the safety cars on the track.
Safety cars weren't on the track yet.
But there was. The pace car was on the track.
Okay, halfway across the track.
Not really. Johnny Sauter and Austin Hill were in the top 10.
That's not even the important thing. Austin Hill had got what he deserved right here.
Yeah, he got what he deserved, but you can't give it to him when you're under yellow.
There's 75 laps to go.
You can't
Johnny
do
Sauter
that.
is not going to stick around and wait for Austin Hill for an hour for this race to end. No, they're going to load up the car.
You take him out the next week.
And they're going to leave. No, because it's not the same.
You don't take it. So you are okay. You are okay with under yellow flag conditions.
Perfectly okay with what he did, because there was no safety concern in that area.
How do you know there was a safety concern?
Because Johnny Sauter's smarter than that, and I know that.
Are you sure? Because
Absolutely.
Johnny Sauter is somebody who just wrecked a dude under yellow. That is the dumbest take ever had, Nick. And you got some dumb takes.
Austin Hill, he caused this because he ran a guy off the track and ended his day. Championship contender, Johnny Sauter. We know what his stakes are at this year. He's under tremendous pressure.
And yes, who else is in the playoffs with a one-year deal?
Yeah, Austin Hill's a pay driver.
Both of them.
Just shut up about Austin Hill. Don't even get me started.
Both of them are in the playoffs right now, so you can.
Austin Hill will be around for as long as his sponsor is there.
But both of them are in the playoffs, so you cannot say that this is a playoff driver getting a pay driver out of the way. These are both playoff drivers right now.
It's completely different, though. For the two situations are different because Austin Hill is under tremendously less pressure than Johnny Sauter.
Austin Hill, no.
This is the last year Johnny Sauter has to race, more than likely.
Austin Hill is taking over the ride that won a championship last year. You mean to tell me the guy who took out a popular driver in a championship ride who came and paid for it is under less pressure than Johnny Sauter,
a guy who's in his last season
forever? Especially, by the way, about that quote, you were on this set arguing to me less than a month ago that you would rather have Johnny Sauter be on your team than Brett Moffitt because of all Johnny Sauter has done for GMS. And now it's Johnny Sauter's last season.
Way to backtrack that take. It probably is, because he's probably not going to get another chance to drive with no sponsorship in the direction that this sport is going. And
regardless, they are both under the same amount of pressure. Do not come in here and tell me that the dude who just took over a championship seat that the fans don't only like because the driver
if he loses that ride, he's just going to go buy his way into another ride. Sauter can't do that because he's 44 and he doesn't have any sponsorship.
This is the best seat Austin Hill's ever had. So they're under the same amount of pressure, okay? I am not against taking a dude out during the race under green flag conditions.
Okay, but what are you supposed to do if you're Johnny Sauter right here? He clearly didn't want to wait for the next truck race to go ahead and do this.
That's Johnny Sauter's fault. Johnny Sauter's being an idiot.
Which is weeks away.
It's Saturday, Nick.
Where are they racing Saturday?
Gateway.
Okay, never mind. But anyway,
you don't even know the schedule. I got you so fired up, you don't even know when the damn races are.
Okay, so anyway, Sauter's truck is wrecked. He's done. You either, if you're going to make something out of that day, and I don't think NASCAR was about to do anything to Austin Hill here, and Austin Hill should have been parked for that move.
He should have been parked for the Dale Earnhardt bump and run.
With 75 laps to go, with no warranty.
You are talking out of your backside. We are in the last stage. There are 75 left to go. These are both drivers vying for spots.
That's half the race.
That's not, it is half the race, but that's still a valid move. We've seen that move 1,000 times. You are the type of guy who will come in here and tell me how you pine for the days of old school racing. And then when a driver you don't like makes an old school move on a driver you like, because you like Johnny Sauter.
There wasn't even a move made, though.
He dumped him.
Austin Hill.
All right, he moved him up the track.
Austin Hill lost his line because he didn't make the corner the right way. And then he got mad about something that was his own fault, and he ran right over him with 75 laps to go.
Yeah, so
if
whatever.
There's 5 laps to go, and this is a battle for the win, then I understand.
So it's different. So the move is different if there's 5 laps to go.
It's a battle for what? 7th place with halfway through the race? Why? Why do you do that?
It's a battle for 7th place when both these guys are locked into the playoffs with a win, right? Both these guys are locked into the playoffs.
Neither of them were going to win the race.
Neither of them going to win the race, but hey, winning 5th or 6th might be the difference between getting past that first stage in the playoffs and not getting past that
but
first stage.
But there's 75 laps to go. Why are you dumping people for no reason? And how do you not know who's going to win the race?
We'll get to the subject, but Ross Chastain got DQ'd. So at that point, anybody can win the race. You do not know. You do not race to say, well, he ran me up the track a little. I'm just going to get in line and do my job and follow him around. No, you get that spot. You always get that spot. You never know when the race is going to end. You dump him every single time. Now, when you get to series like the Cup Series, where the ramifications of dumping somebody at a short track, Cup boys, they're playing with millions more dollars, right? I can see where your argument about it being at different points in the race, but this is Iowa. This is a short track, and this is a track where you dump him.
Hold on. Backtrack. What did you just say Iowa was?
Oh boy. Iowa.
We need to call up Matt Weaver right now.
Iowa is technically a short track, but it does not race like a short track except for this one incident. But the point I get at is Austin Hill should be put on probation. They both should have been put on probation, but I think the idea of parking Sauter for a race, for doing this under yellow. This is my only objection to any of this, is that he did it under the yellow flag.
Then doing it under yellow is a gray area for sure. And I understand the safety
concern. He comes back and wrecks Austin Hill under green. It's a funny move.
Right. But there's no way he's going to be back out there under green. That was the only reason why he did it under yellow. And there was nothing in any sort of.
That's because of the Matt Kenseth rule. Because because the last time we did let a driver do this under green, he ran a championship contender into the wall.
Right. But at the same time, Johnny Sauter is not going to wreck somebody if there's an ambulance or a safety truck right there. The safety trucks, they were all headed to turn 4 where the accident was anyway. Sauter went in it, or to turn 2, I believe it was, where the accident was.
That's where they were lining up pace car wise.
And then they're out in turn 3 when he takes him out. I mean, why is that dangerous at all? The only thing that's there is other cars or other trucks, but they're going slower than they are at race speed.
But that's another thing, too.
And he kept him up the track, too. He didn't steer him into somebody else.
There are other trucks, so if you take out another truck, that's one of those things where...
Well, we've seen that happen before.
If you were doing this under green, you can pick your target and... you can pick your target, put him in the wall, and not hurt anybody. Doing this under yellow, and this is just about consistency with the NASCAR rulebook. One of the things both you and I hate is the inconsistency.
Right.
What we have seen, dump a guy under yellow, you get a race, right?
Yeah.
The big thing I would look at is that the playoff eligibility, and I'm glad they didn't take it away from him.
Me too.
My only objection to this was the dumping him under yellow. Because while Johnny doesn't want to stay there, look, I wouldn't want to stay there for 75 laps either. You have Worldwide Tech, which is it's a mile track coming up this weekend. Then you have other chances to take him out. Like Martin Truex Jr. says he's going to win the damn war, which he did not win. We would like to remind everyone that.
And Truex Jr., a liar.
You could absolutely remember what Austin Hill did to you at Bristol. Take him out at Bristol. You can take the kid out at Homestead in the last race of the year if he's running for a championship. The only thing I don't agree with, because I like the idea of boys have at it, but boys have at it within the constraints of the rule book. Don't do it under yellow. Don't do it when everybody is bunched up into the field, because what happens if Johnny Sauter, takes out one of his teammates because he's trying to take out Austin? Right. Way he came up.
I think he was, I think why he did what he did was because Johnny knew that, listen, if I'm going to do anything the right way, it's going to have to come next week.
Right.
He wanted ramifications now because,
it's road rage. Everyone's hot. It's road rage. And B, I've been watching Johnny Sauter ever since I was a kid. If I know anything about Johnny Sauter, he would have made damn sure that Austin Hill wasn't going to win that race, even though we talked about it. It was a battle, for outside the top 5.
I think that Johnny Sauter was just said, you know what, I'm not going to win this. I had a truck that, maybe did have a shot. You never know, like you said. And I just got taken out of the race for really no reason in a completely uncalled for move. And he just gave it back to Austin Hill. He kept him up on the top side of the track, just ran him into the wall a little bit and spun him out, and then ran into the side of him. It was under yellow. It was at a slow speed. I don't think there was anybody that was put in danger by this move. Now, if he would have done this back in turn 2 where the safety truck was and pushed him off into the safety truck, then that's one thing, and I'm completely for suspending Johnny Sauter and taking away his playoff eligibility.
I don't think, unless if you do it in a place where it's unsafe, I don't think taking away the playoff eligibility is a good idea.
Right.
Regardless,
right.
I don't think that line.
But I just think that I just don't blame Johnny Sauter for what he did. Austin Hill fully deserved it, and it was a punk move from Austin Hill. There's no two ways about that.
I don't blame Johnny Sauter for what he did. Yeah. It's just the fact that he did not, he did it at a time where the rule book was not in his favor. Johnny Sauter comes out at Worldwide Tech and puts Austin Hill into the wall this weekend. Both are on probation.
Right.
Now Johnny Sauter has to deal with the ramifications of missing a race.
The decision wasn't the best, but I don't blame him. That's what I'm saying. I think that if he would have just let that go, as difficult as obviously it is to let it go after your day just gets ended by no reason with 75 to go, it's a situation where Austin Hill is going to get into more trouble than Johnny Sauter is right here. And Johnny Sauter can go out next week and, get that payback after Austin Hill has, been fined, or maybe if he was held a lap or something in that race on Sunday. Okay. So it's all about Johnny Sauter let his road rage.
And that's when you got to have a crew chief who comes on the radio and be like, hey, calm down, man. Like, don't do anything stupid. Like, your crew chief, your spotter have to be on the radio when he's in the wall. Be like, all right, don't do anything stupid now. We'll get him next week.
Yep. But at the same time, Austin Hill had that fully coming for him, and it's quite honestly unfortunate that his car wasn't taken out of the race, because if Johnny Sauter was going to go behind the wall for that move and have his day ended, Austin Hill fully deserved the same thing. So Ross Chastain was the other big story from this race.
We've joked about how sometimes I get inflated and deflated on this show. I got legitimately sports depressed Sunday night. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to watch NASCAR anymore. It hit me really hard.
Backstory for this: Ross Chastain, dominant truck at Iowa on Sunday in the truck race. I think this is the longest we've ever talked about the trucks on this show, and we're not even done yet. So Ross Chastain dominates the race, wins the race by a couple of seconds over Brett Moffitt. But then, Melon Man challenge complete. They go to victory lane. Ross smashes.
Only 19 points out of 20th, so all he has to do is run 20th the rest of the year, and he gets into the playoffs.
Right. Smashes the watermelon off of victory lane and then helps clean it up like a gentleman afterwards. But then a couple hours later, it's announced that our boy Ross didn't pass post-race inspection. The truck was too low in the front end, and Brett Moffitt was declared the winner. This is the first DNQ.
And it has to happen.
Right. It has to happen to one of the most popular drivers.
It can't happen to Brad Keselowski or Kyle Busch. It has to happen to Ross Chastain. It can't happen to it can't happen to Johnny Sauter. It has to happen to the one dude who has had the most up and down last year as far as racing goes, and overall has had an up and down career.
Yep. So he gets it taken away. He's the first driver to have it taken from him, have a win taken away from him since the encumbered rule was changed. And it's gotten quite a bit of outcry. But here's the thing. This is what we wanted as NASCAR fans
wanted DQs.
This is what we wanted.
NASCAR fans, you, me, everyone in NASCAR is like, well, if the car's not legal, the car don't win. Like, everybody was complaining.
This is what we wanted in the offseason. Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, they worked to change it.
They listened.
They listened to the fans. Now the fans are mad because Ross Chastain, who's a popular driver, is the victim of this. I think their decision to appeal was a good one. I don't know. I don't think the results of the appeal have come out yet.
Appeal will be heard tomorrow.
So I think from what I've heard from Nice Motorsports, the team Nice Motorsports, is that they think that they sustained that damage hitting the wall. And Ross was running the high line of the race, of the track, the entire race, up in the bumpy part of the racetrack. They think it affected something because obviously it passed pre-race inspection, and then they said it was way too low post-race. I mean, it's not like you can just just change the ride height on pit road, especially with the NASCAR official standing there.
Well, that's the thing that I look at is that
I think he's got a chance at winning this appeal.
I think he's got a chance, but now that we've seen the DQ take effect, now I think we look at the DQ rule and say, okay, so is this the best way to really do this?
Right.
Phelps and O'Donnell have said we want the fans to know who won the race on the way out the track.
Right.
I actually don't agree with that now. Now that I've seen it happen, I think NASCAR should announce that pending a teardown, the car has been DQ'd. And then they should take it back to North Carolina Tuesday morning, do the teardown, run the, use the technology you have in NASCAR to make sure you got it right. Right? That's one of those things where Iowa is a bumpy track. Iowa is a track where, it's a short track, mile type of track. It's bumpy.
Yeah.
And these cars sat for an entire night before they ran the race in the morning. So, you can have compressions, and I would want to know on Nice's end what makes it so the car passes pre-race but fails post-race, because what you can do in the front end, you can take some spring rubbers out. Yep. You can do tire pressure.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot you can do that would make that super illegal. So it's interesting to me because, and it's also one of those things where I didn't think NASCAR was going to have the guts to enforce it. I did not think NASCAR was going to have the guts to go through it. And if we want to put on our tinfoil hats, they obviously, tinfoil hat man in me says they did it at a track in Iowa where it'll go away by the time we're going to another, they did it. Conspiracy theorist to me says they did it to somebody who was, they did this because they wanted, the conspiracy theory could be there, right?
Right.
But I just wonder, we've seen cars, they burn it down. They burn down the wheels and they burn down, the whole thing of last year was people figured out something in the rear of the car to make it faster. So what do? You burn up your quarter panel. That's what you do. And it really is interesting to me to see what this is going to come out as tomorrow. Yeah. Because, NASCAR needs to explain why it failed. NASCAR should be as transparent as they could.
That definitely needs to happen because, when you watch the race Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you see the race winner and you can say, okay, this is why he won the race. He did this, this, and this to deserve that win. When you find out 3 hours later that he didn't win because the car was illegal, okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. I love the rule. I think it's a great rule. It could use a little bit of minor tweaking, but it's a very good rule around the basics. But I want to know why the car failed.
I want to know exactly why the car failed.
I want to know what this, and that contributed to why this car failed, right down to the last spec of what caused this car to fail post-race inspection. I don't want to hear, the front end was too low. Right. I want to hear why the front end was too low, what caused that to happen, and what made that so that they could not give this car the win. Because,
this is a major
the fans
penalty
deserve
now,
that.
too.
Yeah,
this is a major penalty.
Huge penalty because a DQ means you finish last.
A DQ means you get 1 point for a last place finish, right? That means none of your stage points count. This means Ross Chastain loses 60 points.
So if you're
going to take away 60 points, you better tell the fans why you took away the 60 points.
And here's the thing for Ross Chastain. He has 6 races to do this. 6 races to get into the playoffs. And if he went from 19 points out of 20th place
about 79. He's 79 points out.
Now 79 points out, still needs a win in 6 races. Things went from pretty much he could just go out and ride around and
now
make the
you
playoffs.
Get nervous.
Now he has to really work for this again if this appeal doesn't go through successfully for this team. So this changes things dramatically for these guys. So this decision on Wednesday is probably going to be the biggest piece of news that comes out this week.
It's going to be a big piece of news as far as the rest of the year goes too, because of the implications that part of racing is towing that line, right? Part of racing is getting as close to that line as you can. And I'm willing to bet that Ross Chastain's truck, when it passed pre-race inspection, was as close as you could possibly get to that ride height, line. Obviously, ride height doesn't matter in the Cup Series, but it is as close as you can get. So it's going to be interesting because if you're a crew chief in the garage, just saying, okay, so now they've done it. Because before, if they were encumbering a couple of wins, they would say, look, we know, we have found that these teams are using this part illegally. You're going to stop it or we're going to go further. And now that I've seen what the DQ does, I'm in favor of going back to the encumber rule, looking at both rules and saying, okay.
You take the best out of both of them, I think.
Basically, I think you should, I think you should have a warning system where the first time you would get DQ'd, it's an encumbered. And then the second time is a DQ. Anytime after that is okay, you fail this time, we'll let you keep the points, we'll give you the 20-point penalty overall from the race. Second time you DQ. Anytime after that, big suspensions, big fines. I now
kind of like a 3 strikes policy.
I kind of now understand the encumbered rule in the sense of it's like, hey, these teams are so close. But the penalty that Ross Chastain got, it would have been a 10-point penalty under last year's system. So to go from a 10-point penalty to an 80-point penalty is a wicked extreme. That, I think that's too much of a swing.
And you lose your waiver too. I mean, he loses the prerequisite for this waiver. I mean, for him to make the playoffs doing this Melon Man Challenge, you have to win a race and be in the top 20. Being in the top 20 is an easy part. I think he'll do that no matter what happens here. But winning that race, he has to win 1 in the next 6 races in an underfunded team. And that's really tough. That's a really tough ask. Now, he has won technically 2 races already this year, both coming relatively close to each other. So it's definitely not impossible, and the team's only picking up momentum. But, I mean, taking that win away, that's the biggest part.
That's the biggest part, and I think one of the things you look at, and I guess if this is Kyle Busch Motorsports, I'm not crying as much, but Nice Motorsports is a small team. They're a very small team. They're just barely getting by. The owner of Nice Motorsports literally said he is using his pension to run Ross this year. He joked about it. So, I think it's one of those things where it sucks for a small team.
Yeah, it sucks for the small team. But
I'm also bad. I'm
all for it. I mean,
I'm all for it. But I'm also in the camp.
Happened, then you got to make the call.
I'm all for it, but I'm also in the camp where it's like, I don't like how rurally the rule book is. Anyway, I am all for rolling back some wins and seeing what the smartest guys can do as far as, if you ain't cheating, you are trying. So, this strikes a chord of me where absolutely hate it for my driver, absolutely hate it for the small team. Also, kind of don't like how, rule book, NASCAR, I will say this forever. NASCAR was not found under measuring ride heights, right? It was not about measuring ride heights or measuring quarter panels or making sure your window is latched in correctly. We've seen some dumb penalties called, and I just think it's one of those things where
it's almost like you have to call those penalties.
You have to, but you hate it.
And you do hate it because, and I think that for the longest time, NASCAR was all about, let's try to keep these things basic and stock. There wasn't a whole lot of technology put into it compared to other series. I think that changed when Dale Earnhardt died, because I think NASCAR realized, okay, we need to step it up with safety, step it up with the technology that's in these cars. And when you increase technology, safety, performance, just dumping in the early 2000s, when that big TV contract came in, the drivers started to get more money. NASCAR started to really, really grow, and the drivers made more money, the teams made more money, the teams started dumping more money into their R&D programs, and it created this kind of monster that we have now where these cars...
creates this vacuum where...
It's just, the tiniest thing that is off on these cars can be the difference between first and 20th. And so I think that's why the racing's not as competitive as it was 20 years ago. It's why...
And we've had the broader discussion about how, we have to we have to rein back some of the revenue stuff in a little bit, and it leads into a topic we'll talk about later, but, the revenue split is broken. So the fast teams have the money to go faster, and the slow teams are just getting slower by the day.
Yeah, and it's tough, but... This is the indirect negative effects of having a powerhouse sport with millions and millions of fans and just incredible revenue. For a long time, the NASCAR was right up there with the NFL for revenue coming in. And when you have a sport that brings in that much money, it's only going to be a matter of time before people start going way overboard and losing sight of what made the sport good to begin with, which was, just building race cars and having these guys, build their own car and and kind of throw technology and caution to the wind. It was all about talent. Now it's all about the technology, putting these cars in the wind tunnel and making them aerodynamic, and that's just, it's as simple as that. That's what it's all about. And so it's a difficult place for NASCAR to be because they don't want to be here. But if you want the sport to be big, then you kind of have to. And I think F1 went with that problem, but they kind of embraced it. They said, all right, we want to be top of the line, just aerodynamic. And
Formula One is one of those things where
they embraced all the money that was coming in and said, let's put this all into technology and make these cars
No, they didn't embrace it. Formula One, Nick, is a sport that has been founded. Their sport, NASCAR was founded on run and rum around, and Formula One was founded on rich blood money. Let's make two things. Like NASCAR is a backyard sport. Formula One was found on the back of a lot of violations of common decency. So just
right. But F1, when the technology became available, NASCAR has historically kind of tried to turn it away as much as possible. F1's embraced it and said, let's go all in on the best technology, the putting just as much money as humanly possible into making these cars the best performance cars that they can be. And that's where NASCAR and F1 differ, at the very basis of the sport. And that's the problem NASCAR will always have as long as they are a big sport, is there's always going to be people who come in looking to make money in this. They're always going to throw a ton of money. There's always going to be that rich guy that throws a ton of money into a program and looks for and just buys his way into victory lane, because NASCAR over the last 20 years has turned into a sport where you can buy wins.
It has.
So before we get away from Iowa Speedway, they put a pretty good show on for a not short track. It is a short track over the weekend.
You know what Iowa is? It is Cornfield Richmond. That is my take. It is Cornfield Richmond.
We should change the name.
That is what it is. Richmond, Virginia. If you just put Richmond, Virginia in a cornfield and took away the lights.
Yes. Does Iowa have lights?
Oh, Iowa does have lights.
Let's ask Bob Pockris.
Truck race is going to be a night race. Iowa has lights. Anyway.
So their 15th anniversary is coming up for 2021. That's the next year. That's the soonest they could be on the Cup schedule. Are they ready for a Cup race?
Oh, it's a hard... Well, so The Athletic... Did you read The Athletic article on it?
No.
The Athletic put out a really good article about what Iowa needs to do to become a touring, a Cup Series track. And they have a couple hurdles to climb, but it's one of those things where... Look at the attendance. Attendance has been an issue at Iowa for a couple years now. And, Iowa's president has said, look, if the Cup cars come, the fans will come. But you have...
And I think that's true because just look at Truck Series and Xfinity Series crowds compared to Cup Series crowds over the last 15 years. Those lower series have really taken a beating since the big stars were told that they can't come. You look at Xfinity Series or a Truck Series crowd from 2006 when Carl Edwards and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kyle Busch and Clint Boyer are all there. And now when you still get your talented guys and you've got your good racing, but you don't have the names. The names put people in the seats. So I think that the attendance being down at Iowa Speedway, a track that only gets those lower series, that no longer will see any of the top stars of the motorsports world showing up, I think that plays a factor. I think it's a little bit of a mirage. Now, for example, look at Thunder Road on any given Thursday night,
right?
And then look at Thunder Road when Kyle Busch came for the Governor's Cup a couple of years ago. I've never seen more people in the place. Big names put people in the seats, and it'll always be that way. So that's why I don't think attendance is a big deal, because you look at attendance and it was good 10 years ago when all these guys were allowed in the series.
And that's another take.
And now it's not as good, but it's because there's not names.
I have slowly come back around on the not letting big names into the lower series take.
That's always been my concern is, be careful what you wish for.
Because now,
especially you don't want to restrict your moneymakers. Your big names are always going to be what brings the revenue in for the sport. If you restrict them from showing up at a time when you really need the money, that's not a great business plan.
I think the thing you look at too is, if you watch that Xfinity race, that was a pretty sad race if you look on from 15th back.
Right.
Like, you have, it's
like a K&N race.
Like 25th to 36th were either field fillers or slower cars. Like, it was not like, if
there's not a lot of competition outside the top 10.
Greg Alding gets a top 15 just by the fact that he shows up and his sponsor wants to run the entire race in a car that's faster than a couple others. Like, back in the day, when you would have 7 to 10 Cup drivers in some of these races, that would mean there would probably
and it wasn't even 7 to 10. There'd be 20 Cup drivers that would show up in some of these races. And not necessarily an Iowa race. It's away from location, as I almost dumped my water.
But $2,000 work laptop.
Yes. You've got that Milton High School budget. You can
it's not as big as you think it is.
But no, there used to be guys that would show up. They'd fill the field right up. The Cup drivers would be the field fillers.
Well, it's like even if you had 6 to 10 guys on Cup teams,
a track like Iowa,
even if you had 6 to 10 Cup guys come to Iowa, that would mean getting a top 20 actually means something. Like, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Top 10s mean stuff in the Xfinity Series, but man, let's think of the Xfinity cars. You have the 3: Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, Cole Custer. So after those, Cole Custer's teammate Chase Briscoe, the other 3 Gibbs cars. So there's 10 cars that have the ability to run up front consistently. Like, Penske's got, look at the cars back in the Xfinity Series. Chip Ganassi Racing, gone. Penske.
Roush Racing.
Penske
3
down
years.
to 1 ride.
Penske's down to 1.
With a second one that they sometimes field.
Right. Roush is 2 years removed from having a 3-car team with 3 pretty competitive cars. Last year, the 60 raced in every race that it entered within the first 20 laps. And then Ryan Reed just stopped having any sort of talent.
Ryan Reed lost sponsorship.
And lost sponsorship at the end of the year. Roush Fenway, 2 years ago, they had 3 cars in the Xfinity Series. Now they have none. They've completely shut down their program.
Roush Fenway and Chip Ganassi, that's 4 cars that would have helped fill that field. And then Penske used to run the 12 and the 22. The 12 used to be a
RCR
full-time.
hasn't run the 21 very much this year.
They ran Kaz Growler a couple of times.
They ran Kaz Growler. They ran another paid driver. I don't know who it was on Sunday. It wasn't Shane Lee. They had some other guy in there. I've never heard of him, but Shane Lee has been in there.
So that's 5 cars, and then you look at Junior Motorsports. They're down to 3 full-time cars and an all-star car. Yeah. So and
that's down 1 from last year. So there's 6.
There are 6 cars that were running for championships in the last couple of years that are not running for championships anymore. And
RCR had that 33 car too for a little bit.
They did. Back in the glory days of the Xfinity Series, you would have 3 or 4. RCR would have 3. Joe Gibbs would have 4. Chip Ganassi would have 1, maybe even sometimes 2. Penske would have 2, sometimes 3. Hendrick never had an Xfinity car, but there was always a car in the field sometimes that would have the back of a Hendricks, and it's just kind of sad how
here's the thing.
Shrunk.
For the Xfinity Series, I'm okay with saying the Cup drivers can't run for the championship. That's fine. You can't be like, oh, Mookie Betts, you should go down and play in AAA all year just so you can win the MVP award easily and, hit 60 home runs. They should keep it for the younger drivers, the drivers who run full time in the Xfinity Series. But there shouldn't be any limitations on if these guys want to race. If Kyle Busch shows up and says, I want to race, and you're turning him down, think in hindsight of how crazy that's going to sound 20 years from now. That's like telling Dale Earnhardt that he can't race, that he can't run in a race that he wants to run in.
And another thing
you're losing money on,
especially for the younger drivers. And this is another thing where I look at Ross Chastain getting screwed by the rules.
Right.
The whole having to declare before a season starts for what points you're running. And I think if you are under 30 with less than 3 years of experience in the Cup Series, you should be able to say, I'm going to go undeclared, I'm going to run as many races, as long as you don't miss a race. So then Ross Chastain can be like, hey, I've had the third best truck in the truck series.
Instead of having to do it at the beginning of the year, I think there should be a deadline. You say, let's go 10 races in. If you're just, for whatever reason, you're running both series, and for whatever reason, you're just having a terrible year in Xfinity, you want to run for truck points, you get your truck points from those first 10 races.
As long as you made every single race, too. Right. That's the thing. And I think that should be something NASCAR should look at in the sense of, hey, give some of these drivers who might be Cinderella stories. Ross Chastain, the furthest he's going in the Xfinity Series playoffs is barely making it, being cut round one.
Right.
Ross Chastain in the Truck Series has a chance. He has a chance. So why are you telling a guy like him, well, you have to pick one that you want to run in? And it's just like, if you have a driver that wants to do all that racing,
right. That's good for the sport.
As long as they're not a guy like Kyle Busch who's been around forever, But if they're a guy who you can tell doesn't have a top flight Cup ride, be like, give them a chance to win a championship. It helps marketability.
Exactly. Getting back to Iowa though, 2021, I think they're on for one race.
I think they're on for.
And this is why. They are in between. They're under a mile. That alone is going to get them the Cup race because. Right now, I don't think that it is realistic to say, let's get Nashville Fairgrounds on there.
I don't think Nashville Fairgrounds will be ready by 2024.
Right, exactly. I don't think it's realistic to say, let's get a North Wilkesboro fixed up or a South Boston fixed up. Get one of these, half-mile short tracks that everybody wants to come. That I think eventually will be back because NASCAR wants, the fans want the old days back. NASCAR is going to eventually give us the old days. I really, truly believe that. But you cannot. It's not going to happen in
I think
Iowa's going to get at least one date for a really long time while these other tracks come in because the fans said, we want more short tracks. Steve Phelps is going to say, here's a track under a mile that has produced, good, not great racing. In the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, they have modern amenities there. This isn't a dump. A Cup Series can go there. It brings them to a new region that they don't really go to outside of Kansas.
Well, they go to Chicagoland.
They go to Kansas. They go to Chicagoland. That's 3 races. But other than that, the Midwest doesn't really have a whole lot of a
and I think Iowa gets
out there.
A 3 to 5 year. Here is your chance.
I think 5 years for tracks other than the crown jewel races are kind of. I think that's what NASCAR is trying to get out of.
I think what you do for NASCAR. I think what I would do if I was NASCAR, I'd go to Iowa and say, all right, we'll sign a 3-race contract for you, 3 years, right? And then if the first 3 races go well and you put on a good show, in the sense of it doesn't matter, the on-track product doesn't really matter as much as because if Iowa sells out 3 straight races, even if they're kind of stinkers, if the sponsors and fans are happy with the track, you say, so 3-year contract with a 5-year option in the sense of 3 years, and if we like those first 3 years, or if we like those first 2 years, we then tell you going into the 3rd year, we're going to pick up your other 2 years. Basically a player option of a 2 and 3, you know what I mean? Like in the sense of, okay, you get 3 races, you get a 2-year option. We decide what option you get. If we like what we're seeing, we'll keep them here. I think Iowa should get that type of treatment. I think it should get a cup race. I'm not really excited about it, but
they deserve it. They've been around. I think they were built to eventually get that cup race. It's been 15 years. It'll be 15 years, 2021. This track's been around. They haven't gotten one yet. They've done a good job, doing with this standalone weekend that they get now for Father's Day weekend. They've done a decent job at it.
Well, I think it was a great race this past weekend because it was one of those things where, hey, you have yourself a doubleheader, a nice day.
Might as well watch it.
Qualifying between both races. I would have loved to have been at Iowa.
Right. And so, yeah, I think they get a cup race just based on the fact that NASCAR fans want more short tracks. They are a Band-Aid short track, at the very least, for the next 4 or 5 years. While NASCAR gets these tracks going, maybe they'll build a short track. Who knows at this point? But that'd be really cool to see a new track come into NASCAR that gets built for the Cup Series. Because we haven't seen that in a very, very long time. It's been 10 plus years since we saw our last new track come on the schedule, if you don't count the Roval. And if you go back even farther, it's been since, I believe, 2001 since a track has been built for the Cup Series. So with Chicagoland and Kansas. So maybe NASCAR goes out and builds a short track too. I don't think anybody would be opposed to that. So moving towards the Cup Series here, the silly season, we talked about it for the first time last week. We only got about, 15 weeks into the season before we start talking about the offseason. It gets earlier and earlier every year, but the rumor mill heating up hot as ever this week for this early in the season. Report coming out saying that a competitive charter team will shut down their Cup Series operation at the end of the 2019 season. There's been a lot of speculation on who it could be, no real leads, but if you had to guess right now, who do you think it's going to be?
I think it might be Front Row Motorsports. I know it said the team that's going to close down is a top team that's run up front, but I look at the other teams, so... I don't want to say it's blowing smoke, but we've heard none of these rumors outside of, maybe Roush having trouble with their Xfinity team. It's just like Chip Ganassi Racing. They lost a major sponsor. They've kept losing major sponsors, but they've also brought on, Credit One. They've brought on 3 or 4 sponsors. McDonald's has stepped up their investment, Yep. So Chip Ganassi, I would say the 42 is at least covered for 20 races, and then you have Monster Energy with Kurt Busch. So Kurt Busch has said he wants to come back. So I don't know if they're going to, Kurt Busch is already negotiated with Chip Ganassi, so I do not know if Chip Ganassi is going to shut down. RCR announced an extension with a sponsor that shall not be named. And then Tyler Reddick is going to have a ride in the Cup next year.
I think Tyler Reddick is even more so than RCR announcing that they will have the unnamed sponsor Dow Chemical return.
The unnamed Agent Orange inventor.
Yes, in 2020, I think Tyler Reddick is one of the top prospects in the sport. I think RCR's got this is RCR's Kevin Harvick, I'm starting to think. Their first Kevin Harvick in a very long time. There's a lot of hype around this kid. He's got talent.
He's got the talent.
Even though we are an anti-Tyler Reddick show.
I am not an anti-Tyler Reddick show anymore.
With our short track breaks.
You just don't like him because you look like him. That's absolutely the reason why you don't like him. You are both gingers. That's why you don't like Reddick.
Wow. I feel personally attacked right now.
Yeah, because I just personally attacked you, Nick. Come on. The other team that might shut down would be Roush Racing.
Yeah.
I would think they're, they've had sponsorship this year on all their cars. Ryan Newman's getting towards the end of his career. I'm not sure how much longer Ricky Stenhouse wants to be there. They're down to 2 cars. I could see Roush going away. Roush doesn't really have a succession plan.
Well, I think that the reason why it could be Roush is because of Jack Roush's age.
Yeah.
He's getting up there close to 80 years old now. He's had his fair share of scares in the past.
Dude survived not 1 but 2 plane crashes.
Right. I think that he is in a situation where he might be looking to step away from the sport. I can't imagine that team is making any money. They've got they had a huge operation. If you've ever been to their shop, it's just as big.
They were running 8 cars at one point. They were running 8 cars and like 3 trucks at their prime.
Right.
Roush had the biggest operation in NASCAR. Trucks, Cup, Xfinity, like they had it
You
all.
lose Matt Kenseth, you lose Carl Edwards, and it all kind of spirals out of control from there because and Greg Biffle kind of ran, got old pretty much.
He lost
lost his sponsorship. So
Roush has always been known in the garage to charge a lot for sponsorship rates.
Yeah.
So when that recession hit,
it hit them hard.
Hit them hard.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of sponsors that, they used to be a 5-car Cup team. They're down to 2. And, right now, Ricky Stenhouse he's got Fastenal, he's got Sunny D, which
Fifth Third Bank.
Fifth Third. So he's got 3 sponsors that, Fifth Third does 2. Sunny D, I think, does 5. Fastenal covers the rest, and they sell as they go. And then Ryan Newman has Oscar Mayer on the car for, I think, 10 to 20 races this year. And then he's been, filling in sponsorship. Did he run a Coke scheme yet? I don't know if he ran a Coke scheme yet.
Yeah, he ran a Coke scheme at Michigan.
He ran a Coke scheme. So you can definitely tell of the Glory teams, they are struggling quite a bit.
Yeah, they are. And, I don't think that they're in a position where they have to shut down, but I think Jack Roush might just be getting up there where he's says, I don't really want to do this anymore. And at that point, who'd turn it over to?
Yeah, it's nobody.
And, that's where things get difficult. But I think it's going to be Chip Ganassi racing. And here's why. Kyle Larson's a free agent. And I just don't think that Chip Ganassi has never really been the guy to kind of go at it with no sponsorship. He's always kind of had Target there, and he opened up and then the merger with DEI, and only one of those cars are left now with the one. With Kyle Larson probably leaving, I think it's a pretty much foregone conclusion at this point that he's gone. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. And I say I don't know because
I just have a tough time seeing him back there this year or next year after the last 2 years he's had, and then looking back at the years before that where he showed so much
racing
promise.
Is that, we talk about how Ross Chastain is doing this Melon Man Challenge. He's building brand awareness, right?
Yeah.
Ross Chastain comes with a little money, not a lot, but a little money. I think Ross Chastain comes with a little more money than Kyle Larson came.
Definitely.
You can get a couple watermelon races out of the dude.
Yeah.
Kurt Busch is thinking about coming back. Ross Chastain is still under contract, is still tied to Ganassi. So there's your path to replacing somebody. I think Chip Ganassi might try 1 year where he puts Ross in the 42, has Kurt Busch come back in the 1 and says, all right, you got to get Ross sponsorship. But this is the thing, what sponsors are tied to Kyle Larson? What sponsors are not tied to Kyle Larson?
I don't think Kyle Larson has much tied to him.
Do you see Kyle Larson taking McDonald's with him? Does Kyle Larson really seem like the face of McDonald's? Do you see Kyle Larson taking Credit One or Clover or any of the other sponsors he's run this year with him? And this is the thing that Chip Ganassi's really done. Chip Ganassi has a lot of sponsors.
Right.
They have an IndyCar program. They have a fully funded IndyCar program. This is not, Chip is not hurting for money. He doesn't want to go it alone, but we might see a situation where he's like, I have a pay driver coming back in 1 car, a pay driver who has been, top 10 in points.
Pay driver who's in his 40s, though.
Chip Ganassi is in the running for the win a championship this year.
Yeah.
The 1 car has a shot at a championship this year.
Kurt Busch is on a 1-year deal. Kyle Larson is on an expiring deal. I think it might just be easier right now for Chip Ganassi. We've heard, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow. He talks about how frustrating it is to be a NASCAR Cup Series owner because
Bob Levine, the owner of the 95
Bob
car.
Levine is also the same way. But Chip Ganassi is straight up and honest on Twitter about how he feels the direction of the sport is going, and he doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. You've got your driver on a 1-year deal, Kurt Busch. He's expiring. He's got monster sponsorship. If he wants to keep going, he can go anywhere he wants to. I can almost guarantee any team that he wants to go to, he can go to, unless it's a team that is full with sponsorship with cars. Kurt brings the sponsorship that can get you in anywhere. Kyle Larson brings what is presumed to be a ton of talent. It hasn't really shown in the last 2 years, but he's still tearing it up at the dirt car level. I don't think he goes back there full time just yet, but the talent's there. Kyle Larson brings an immense amount of talent. I think it's easy. It could be easier for Chip Ganassi to say, "Hey, I've got these few sponsors: Credit One, Clover, McDonald's. You guys want to come over and sponsor some of our Indy cars, which could be even more fully sponsored. Maybe they open another IndyCar team." And
Simon Pageant.
Kurt Busch has expressed interest in maybe going over to IndyCar to finish his career. I think right now it makes the most sense because it's easy. It's a situation where it's an easy out for Chip Ganassi right now.
I think it's an easier out for Roush. I think it's an easier out for Jack Roush, and I think maybe, wouldn't shock me to see Ricky Stenhouse in the 42 next year. So he brings some sponsorship. I think it's an easier out for Roush because Roush has less going for it right now than Chip Ganassi. I think it's really hard for Chip Ganassi, who has said he's complained about the sport, but he also hashtags I like winners a lot. I think it's hard for Chip Ganassi to look at the program that he has with a car that is in the top 5 in the points right now and another car that has a good amount of sponsorship and say, well, sorry, we're done. We're shutting it down. And also, racing breeds other racing, right? Advancements that he can find in his Cup shop can help him in his GT shop or in his IndyCar shop. So, not really sure. I think it's Roush. But it would not shock me to see Front Row Motorsports shut down at all either.
Yeah.
You got 4 minutes. Let's go. 3 minutes. Let's go Sonoma.
Let's go to Sonoma. Darrell Waltrip's final race in the broadcast booth. Fox's last race in the broadcast booth until 2019.
Lord.
What he said. NASCAR and NBC will be running down a dream.
We get Dale
when
Jr.
we get to Kentucky.
Dale Jr. is better than all 3 people in the Fox booth.
Yes. So let's get to our fantasy picks. Dustin mopped the floor with me again, although we both did pretty well last week. I finished with 78 points, including the race winner, Joey Logano, but Dustin had, but I also had Clint Boyer. That kind of killed me. So Dustin beat me by 13 points. He now leads the point standings by 148 points. We've done 12 of these so far. So week 13, Sonoma. Let's do it. Dustin, you're picking first.
We're going to go with Kevin Harvick. This track is not going to be kind. They're running the original layout, so I'm going to take the guy who has finished top 2 in the last 2 races here. That's my safe pick. Kevin Harvick is my safe pick for the week.
I am taking the 2 drivers that have been really, really good at Sonoma over the last couple of years. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch.
Oh, you're going to leave me the guy who finished 3rd place last year? That's what you're going to do? You're going to leave me the guy who finished 3rd place and 2nd place in back-to-back years? Yes, you are. That's Clint Boyer.
Yeah, Clint Boyer.
Boyer's very good here.
Very good. 6-1 odds to win this race. So Boyer's a good pick. And your 3rd pick?
Clint Boyer, and then I'm looking at the results here. Oh, man, this one's hard.
Minute 55, Dustin. Let's go.
Minute 55. You're on the clock. Let's take Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott, yeah. Always, he won that.
Sneaky good on road courses.
He won the K&N race a couple years ago.
Sneaky good.
Yep.
Won Watkins Glen.
I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin, another very good road course racer. And I'm also going to go with Joey Logano.
I'm going to take, did you take Kyle Busch yet?
Yeah, took him with my 2nd pick.
Did you take Kurt Busch?
No.
We're taking Kurt Busch.
Okay.
We like Kurt Busch, and then with Kurt Busch, have some faith in the man. Let's go with Alex Bowman, the showman.
Alex Bowman, the showman. So let's see. I have 2 more picks to go. Here, I am going to take Daniel Suarez, and I'm also going to take Ryan Preece because I think short track racers do really good at road courses.
That's a bold take, bud. Do I have another
last pick?
Let's go with did you take Eric Jones?
I did not take Eric Jones.
We'll take Eric Jones. He finished 7th here last year.
Ryan Preece is my all-in pick for week 13.
You want a dark horse to improve over last year?
Who's that?
Ryan Blaney finished 34th in this race last year.
Won the last road course race that was run. So final minute here. I'm swinging for the fences, trying to catch back up in our fantasy standings. Thank you to everybody who's helped make this broadcast possible.
Taken out to the woodshed. Please like our Facebook page. Please,
like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Inside Groove TV. Visit our website, InsideGrooveTV.com. Thank you to Handy GMC Buick Cadillac in St. Albans, along with Taberge Beef, for sponsoring tonight's show. show. Thanks to Zach in the studio for pressing all the right buttons. And for Dustin, I am Nick. We will see you back next week, hopefully in our regular Monday night slot. This has been the Inside Groove on Northwest Access TV.